What is up? Welcome back to the YouTube channel for Peacefully Wired. My name is Matt, aka Peacefully Wired, and this video is going to be about triggers. And before I go any further, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you think about the content. Is it helping you? What kind of content would you like me to do? What are you struggling with? And if you're looking to do one-on-one coaching sessions with me, please email peacefullywired@gmail.com. I just got my website up. I got my Google listing going on. I am a lot of people out there doing stuff like this, not taking it seriously. I'm definitely taking this seriously. I want to help people get to where I am. I struggled a great deal with OCD for many, many years. And so I'm here to help, guys. So this video is about triggers and maybe some insights about triggers that maybe you don't know, maybe most people don't know. There's a lot of different ways that people look at triggers. Um, and a lot of the way that people look at triggers is in a victim mentality mode, right? A lot of people like to blame others for being triggered, right? You see it a lot in culture now, where if you trigger somebody or say something, I mean, just and I don't want to pick on anybody, and I have nothing wrong. I have no issue with anybody in the LGBTQ plus community, right? But you have seen it with the trans movement, where people that identify that maybe might be male identify as female, or vice versa. And if you make the mistake of not knowing what they are and you call them what they appear to be, and then they get triggered, and now it's your fault, and that's just bullshit. I mean, seriously, I don't, again, like saying that that's some type of an assault, or that is violence against somebody, is absolutely ridiculous. And if that's the way you think and believe, you are a victim, okay, and you're going to have a really hard time in life. Okay, and I'm not trying to pick on you and tell you that you're a ridiculous human being, or anybody that believes this way is a ridiculous person. That is a ridiculous, rigid way to think. You're not right or wrong. That is a very rigid way to think, right? To blame somebody else for you feeling uncomfortable. It's not my fault you feel uncomfortable, right? It's a big misnomer. Triggers, they're not your fault necessarily, but they're not my fault either, right? Getting triggered because you have trauma in the past, right? Whether you were young and you got SA'd, or I mean, your family, you're growing. Maybe your father or mother could have been abusive, right? Um, it's not your fault if things from that time in your life trigger you, okay? But you have the control over what your behavior is going to be. And this is where a lot of people get this type of thing wrong essentially, because you got a lot of therapists out there that are telling people that their triggers are the fault of the person that gave them trauma. And it's actually, this video again came from somebody commenting on one of my pieces of content, where I talked triggers are not anybody else's fault, but your you being triggered is your fault. You being triggered is no one else's fault but you, right? Because ultimately, it's not that you're getting triggered, it's your reaction to the trigger and your blame of the trigger or someone else for triggering you. And now you've got to behave a certain way because of that trigger. And this person said, trigger is the fault of the person that caused that person trauma. And it's just not true. It's not true, right? The situation is definitely unfortunate, whatever it is, for whatever reason that person's being triggered, unfortunate. But if you're 10, 15, 20 years later and you're still being triggered or holding a grudge, or you have anger inside of you from this episode that happened, even if it's even if it's a year ago, right? At some point, you have the choice to move forward. Your your responsibility to yourself to live a life of peacefulness and contentment is on you. It's not on anybody else. You can't change what somebody did to you. Harboring anxiety, angry feelings, harboring angst for someone is not going to get that situation to go away, right? I held a grudge against my parents for a long, long time. My mom enabled me. My dad kind of shunned me a lot. Neither one of them knew I had OCD. I didn't know I had OCD. I didn't know why I behaved the way that I did. They didn't know why I behaved the way that they did or that I did. They didn't know I had a brain disorder. I didn't know I had a brain disorder. I knew something was up. They knew something was up. But I also wasn't treated like there was something wrong with me, right? I wasn't given the grace of, oh, he has OCD, which I'm actually glad to a certain degree because I think that would have made me even more of a victim mentality. But nonetheless, I still definitely held a grudge towards my parents. It's my parents' fault. I'm the way that I am. It actually isn't their fault because I do have a brain disorder. If I didn't have OCD and they raised me the way that they did, there's a good chance things would have been a lot different, right? But anyways, like I blame them a lot. I blame them for where I was in life. I blame them for stifling me, all of this stuff. And I always blame them for anything that was when I would see a family dynamic and I would get jealous or I would be like, God, why couldn't my mom have been like that? Right. And it would trigger me and then I would blame her. Why couldn't you have done this? You did this, you did that. And like that absolutely did nothing for me because my parents were just doing the best that they could. They had no idea that I had an issue, and they're my parents are a little bit older. I mean, I'm older. I'm 45, so my parents are a little bit older, even than like some of my peers' parents. Right? My dad was like 10 years older than most of the dads of the kids that I grew up with. Right? So they grew up in a different era. My dad grew up in the Midwest. My mom grew up in a few different places, but not like progressive. A lot of it, a lot of not growing up in urban city areas. We're talking about the very rural areas is where my parents, mostly my dad. My mom did live in Salt Lake City, which now is a big city, but in the 60s and 70s wasn't a huge place. So but anyways, I used to blame them a lot, and it got me nowhere. And we've got a lot of people walking around, right? Like a person commenting saying the trigger is the fault of the person that caused that person trauma. It's just not. Because while that situation might cause a trigger reaction, that person has the choice, right? You can have two people go through the same exact thing and their lives can turn out in completely different ways. And usually the person that doesn't see themselves as a victim is the one that's able to live a more healthy life. But usually the one that sees themselves as a victim or a martyr is the one that typically struggles a lot in life. And you see it and you see it all the time. My wife and her sister, you know, their father unalived himself when they were both pretty young. The sister was about 17. I believe my wife was probably in her 20s. Okay. My wife, entrepreneur, like I'm saying, doesn't deal with things and doesn't have things that bother her, but entrepreneur, driven. I dare call her a workaholic, right? On the other side, her sister is, for lack of a better word, a basket case, has a really hard time functioning in society and life in general. Is on disability, I believe, or I don't know if she still is, but takes medication, right? Nothing wrong with these things, just that's a totally different way to live. And one of the reasons why she lives that way is because she's a victim still. I mean, she hasn't really grown past being 17 years old. And that's what you find with all these people. Like they grow up, they're adults, maybe they do have a career, maybe they are successful, but you still see they revert to being in that situation, right, because of a trigger, right, and they're still struggling a great deal. I mean, I was watching the documentary about P Diddy, right, and again, like what he's accused of doing sounds awful. I wasn't there. I don't know. It's in documents. There's a lot of gnarly shit that he was into, right, and potentially look, it seems apparent that he behaved in a really poor way and hurt a lot of people. Okay, but watching this one woman, this happened 30 years ago. We're in 2025, and she's still like can't get over it. Like he ruined my life is what is the language that she's using. And look, I don't care what's happened to you in your life. Like if you can't get over it at a certain point and move on, that's on you. That's not a popular opinion, okay? And whoever watches this all the way through might not like that a popular opinion, but if you can't change your relationship with what you're dealing with and what's happened to you, you're not ever going to have a peaceful life. You'll never be able to recover from OCD, anxiety, or depression if you constantly blame what's happened to you in your life or blame OCD for ruining your life. A lot of people, have this idea that this is ruining my life, right? But it's also within OCD. Like, if I was gay, my life would be ruined. If I had a terminal illness, my life would be ruined. If I harmed somebody, my life would be ruined, right? If I was a PDF, my life would be ruined, right? All of these things, like, you are choosing to have your life be ruined, right? You don't despite what's happened to you, no matter how that makes you feel, what triggers you get, you have the ability and the control and the choice to go, you know what? Even though this thing happened to me, I'm going to do the best to live my life and enjoy my life, right? 20, 30 years later, and you're still, this person ruined my life with what they did to me when I was a young human being, okay? Or maybe you're an older human being and something happened to you when you're 60, and then 30 years later, you're still traumatized by it, right? Either way, you are holding a condition on your life that's your condition. Now, people might say that you're justified. Being justified doesn't mean that it's healthy for you. Just because somebody says you have every right to feel that way doesn't mean that you need to feel that way. It doesn't mean that feeling that way is going to be beneficial for your life. You have the choice to go, you know what? I am going to break this condition that I have on my life, that this thing happened to me and I cannot enjoy my life. My life is ruined because of this thing. You have the choice to go, you know what? Even though that thing happened, even though that makes me feel really uncomfortable, I'm going to choose that I actually can live my life despite this thing happening. This thing doesn't have to ruin my life. I'm letting it ruin my life. It's not a popular thing to hear, and I know from coming from a guy talking about a woman getting assaulted by a man is not a popular opinion. I don't know how many girls or women watch my content, but ladies, I'm telling you, if you're holding on to these things that happen to you, I know, I'm not saying SA is okay. I'm not saying that you don't have a reason to feel like a victim, shame, guilt. I'm not saying any of those things, right? But at some point, it's your choice. It's your choice to be a victim continually. And it's your life, essentially. Do you want, just because this thing makes you feel bad, do you want to continue to give into that feeling? Do you want it to dictate the way the rest of your life goes? Or do you want to go, you know what? Despite this, the intrusiveness of the imagery, the memory, right? Whatever else in your life, wherever that triggers you, right? Whether you're trying to have a relationship and it triggers you, you have the choice to either go, I just can't live my life because of this thing. I can't get into a relationship. I can't get past this. It just bothers me too much. Or, you know what? That does bother me, but I'm going to still choose. I'm going to choose my life, right? Um, my wife, um, my wife was telling me about somebody that she grew up with that took their own life, right? And it was because they were in war, and the atrocities and the imagery that they'd seen, they could not get out of their head. They just couldn't get it out. Um, and I wish I could have talked to this person, because I would have told them, look, that the idea is not to get these triggers out of your mind and out of your head, because they most likely will never go away. But I do know that the more that you want them to go away and try to get them to go away and complain about them and play the victim role, they're going to stick there. So the best thing that you could do for yourself is change the condition that you have to, I can't deal with these thoughts, right? They're ruining my life, to, you know what? Those things don't make me feel good. They do make me feel uncomfortable, and they are, some of those images are just, they're wild. They're intrusive. They're awful. But you know what? I can still make the choice, despite how that's making me feel. I can choose to still not let it ruin my life. I have the choice. And unfortunately, that person is not with us anymore because they decided that, they couldn't deal with it. And I don't believe that. And because of what I've been through with OCD, I know what having really horrible imagery that you don't want thoughts that you don't want, feelings that you don't want to have, I know what that feels like. And I also know that I made a choice to move away from it, and it's changed my life. So, and I honestly don't think, I think they are one and the same, which is why I think I can help anybody with PTSD. I can help anybody that has OCD, anxiety, depression. Like, I can help you guys. I can help you guys move on and change your life and move it in a positive direction. So I appreciate you watching. Again, one-on-one coaching with me, peacefullywired@gmail.com. I'll show you what that looks like. School community is going to be dropping really soon. Okay, we've got lots of great content in that, going to help people recover that way in a community where people can interact. And there's going to be lots of great content for me, hours of content, weekly lives, monthly lives with Q&As, and it's going to be really great. So I'm super excited about that. Got my website going. I'm on Google, right? You can check me out there. And I appreciate you watching my content. Please like and subscribe, follow, comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.